So Shana Tova, everybody. Good Yontif, Shana Tova. So beautiful to see everybody here and to hear all of the messages from those who are on Facebook as well. And I hope you are popping in your... This evening, I want to begin 5781 by talking about hope. Given the past 6 months, that might seem like a strange word to use. How can we look at the world as this new year begins and feel a sense of real, unrestricted hope? Well, let's start by looking at what the Torah can teach us about hope. And I warn you, it might seem a bit strange, but I suppose that in September 2020, most things look a little strange anyway. So here it is. Let's start with the Hebrew word for hope, tikva. Actually, the Hebrew word tikva does not exist in the Torah. It's just not there. That might amaze us, since one of the Hebrew words that most people knows, besides l'chaim and shalom, is tikva, from Hatikva, the Israeli national anthem, the hope. But it's nowhere used, not once, in the entire Torah. In fact, the first time that we find it at all in the Hebrew Bible is not even the way we use it today. Joshua and the Israelites are about to enter the promised land, and they send 2 spies, just like Moses sent spies 40 years before, to scout out the land. We read this back in June. If it's familiar to you, it was the Haftarah Tishlach Lecha. So when the spies are traced to the house of Rahab, the locals aim to capture them, and Rahab hides them. She saves their lives. And to return the favor, the spies offer her a tikva, a scarlet thread, to hang from her window. This tikva, the scarlet thread, becomes Rahab's only guarantee that her household will be spared by the Israelites. It was literally her tikva. It was her only hope. And you see, that is what tikva actually means. Literally, it is a cord, a rope, or a line. It literally means to bind or to tie. Tikva is a rope cord tied from you to whatever your hope is. It is a divine thread. What is our tikva for 5781? What is our tikva right now? Many of you have written your hopes and dreams in the Padlet, and if you haven't done so already, you're welcome to do so now. We'll look at the results just after this Devar Torah. But what I'm sure we could all say, what we're not hoping to, is to go back to March, April, May, June 2020, that we want this world to keep moving out of COVID-19, out of lockdown, out of the pandemic, out of feeling stuck, unsure, unable to make plans, unable to trust that we can meet up, to move, to travel, to hug. And please God, that will happen in its time. But I think there's a more important question. What will we emerge to? What will be different in this new normal? What can we hope we have learned and changed during these, and I'll have to say the words now, unprecedented times? Would it not be wonderful to emerge to a world that was actually better, or at least on the way to it? A world that is ready to repair its brokenness, to heal its wounds, to save itself from itself? Wouldn't it be great to see commitment to solve climate change, to solve growing gaps in income, gender-based violence, white privilege and race prejudice, shortage of jobs, gun violence? Okay, you might say, how can we possibly solve all these problems? They're beyond our power to change. And here's the beautiful moment that we are in right here, right now, this Rosh Hashanah. You see, we've just seen the entire world step up together to stop the spread of coronavirus. If you had told me a year ago that I would stay home for 6 months, greet my neighbors wearing a mask, not go a day without hearing the words, "You're on mute," or these are unprecedented times, or sourdough, I would have laughed. But look, just look at what we have done. At one point, 3.9 billion people, nearly half the world's population, was in some form of hard lockdown. In a matter of months, world international tourist arrivals went from 1.5 billion to 0. Zoom daily users went from 10 million to 200 million users. Oi, if only we had all bought shares in Zoom back then. And with the help of many members of this congregation, Ladles of Love took the Guinness World Record for the most sandwiches made in an hour, from 57,000 to an incredible 304,583 sandwiches made in just 1 hour. You might say that this is not a precedent for changing the world. You can't threaten the world with a deadly virus to make change happen, and you are right. But actually, this wasn't the first time that the world changed overnight. For thousands of years, horses were the preferred mode of transportation throughout the world. But they weren't that fast or reliable, and they made a lot of mess. A lot. At the turn of the century, humans came up with a solution, and cars replaced horses in most places in the world in the space of 10 years. 10 years. Example 2. In 1966, a new TV show called Star Trek featured Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock asking Scotty to beam them up by talking on a communicator that really looked like a Motorola flip phone. The first actual cell phone was demoed by Motorola in 1973. Yes, it weighed 2 kilograms, but 20 years later, there were an estimated 30 million cell phones, and today there are more than 8 billion cell phone subscriptions worldwide. That's more than 1 per person alive. Fear or disease, they happened because people saw that they were good. Vayar ha'adam ki tov. Human beings saw that they were good. We made those happen because we wanted to. And each change brings with it good and challenging new questions. Cars and phones. If we can shut down the world, we can change the world. If we can shut down the world, we can change the world. We can solve climate change, growing gaps in income, gender-based violence, white privilege, race prejudice, shortage of jobs, gun violence, because that is tikva. It is the thread of hope that we hold on to pull us upward into this new year. And right now, I want to invite all of us to throw our red threads of tikva from our windows, to see them fly upwards into the sky, and to begin slowly, arm by arm, to pull ourselves up by them into 5781. Let's decide now. Let's choose now to make this year good and sweet. Because we can. Shana Tova Umatuka.